matters of our cities and matters of our hearts. We ask that you give us wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to say something that will provoke someone to do what is right. We give you thanks and we give you praise. In Jesus' name, amen.
Right. Thank you, Bishop. I appreciate that. And every day we rise is a great day to be alive. And welcome everyone out there in Facebook land and out there in radio land. We appreciate you being here. And as I stated earlier, we have as our special guest, Portsmouth Commonwealth Attorney, Stephanie Morales. I just said Portsmouth because the last interview I saw, the interviewer called Portsmouth. So evidently she's not from Portsmouth. Well, we say it a certain way. But any wordsmith or English major might look at the word and think it's Portsmouth. But to you out there that are not from Portsmouth, it's Portsmouth. Keep that in mind. But anyway, we have Ms. Stephanie Morales here, and she's our Commonwealth Attorney. And welcome this morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming in. And Colonel, thank you for being here today.
Yeah,
how was your weekend, Colonel?
Oh, great.
It's always great. This guy is always great. I'm going to have to check his formula out and see what he's doing to be so great every day. You're not trying to make America great again, are you?
Oh, heavens no.
We won't go.
We were great before that person got in the White
Right,
House.
and we're still great now. How about that?
Well,
we're going to be even greater as time goes on.
Yes.
Okay, let's get to our guest. I want to, I'm glad you came in because this is Women's History Month. And we have dedicated the rest of the month to bringing in ladies that have made history, especially in the city of Portsmouth. And you are one of them. And I guess it's been 5 years ago now when you had the first election. You've been elected twice.
Yes.
The first time was a special election, and then you came back, and after you showed them, you know, I'm the right person for the job, you were elected again.
Yes.
And that's coming up again. So we're going to look forward to that. We have you back as that time goes on. But now, what's going on with you now as far as the office? You've been there 5 years, and things have happened. You have some high-profile cases and other things that's going on. So give us a little caption of what's going on in the Commonwealth Attorney's office in the city of Portsmouth.
So the last 5 years has been truly amazing. I have been so honored to be able to serve the city where I was born and raised. I'm a true daughter of the city of Portsmouth. And, you know, you told a story about how I was as a little girl. It's always been one of my greatest joys to be a true member of the community, which means that as the Commonwealth Attorney, I've looked to not only do my job inside the courtroom, which of course is very serious, but to really think through what I'm doing as a public servant at all times, which means that not only are myself and the attorneys in my office working to diligently do our jobs while thinking through the impact of everything that we do and what that impact is on the members of the community, but also to look at things outside of the office, such as community engagement, looking at how to end the school to prison pipeline, looking at how to engage with members of the community who were formerly incarcerated to ensure that we don't have recidivism issues, and even looking at matters such as housing and how public housing is impacted because of the criminal legal system, trying to think around how to address food insecurity for children during the summer, and trying to get the young people to see themselves as the future of my profession and ultimately some people who will take over what I'm doing when it's time. So that's how the outside has impacted what we're doing on the inside, because as we do the work that we do, when we see matters come through, we want to make sure that we're expending our energy in prosecuting the murders and the very serious crimes, the robberies, the things that keep us from being safe, and that when it's time to look at crimes of poverty, where people are stealing maybe baby formula or something of that nature, how we can be lenient and make sure that we are helping people get back on the right track and not over criminalizing and over incarcerating everyone, because that's what traditionally has been done, but looking to ensure that we look forward and do the things that are appropriate based on the knowledge and the information that we now have.
And Stephanie, and I say Stephanie in no disrespect for your title, but I've been knowing Stephanie since she was a little girl, so I hope she allows me to address her in that way. But all the things you just mentioned were 5 years ago were part of your platform, and so often we get politicians that come out with a platform, and then later down the road we say, what was that platform you were talking about? And you have definitely followed through on all those things, especially in dealing with the young people with the programs you have in place for that. And other things. And we were talking earlier about your stance or your feelings on marijuana, not the use, but the how would you say it? The people that
decriminalization.
Right,
yes.
the decriminalization of it. And before, some time back, you had said you, like other prosecutors in other cities, you're not going to go strong after those people like it has been in the future, because we have people incarcerated for little small minor things for years, and you weren't going to pursue that kind of prosecution on them. And now you're getting some validation from the state Senate and the House about decriminalization.
Yes, and that's very encouraging. You know, obviously as a prosecutor, everybody in my profession has had discretion. And that's a word that in communities is not often talked about, because a lot of times when there is discretion, sometimes that discretion is not used in a way that we would hope, depending on what your background is and what community you come from. Sometimes that discretion is used to over-incarcerate. Sometimes that discretion is used to disenfranchise and oppress people. And so when you're able to use that discretion to really bring light to the fact that communities of color are disproportionately impacted, Black communities and poor communities are disproportionately impacted by marijuana prosecutions the way they have been, and marijuana arrests in the way that they have been. You know, it's really a good thing when you see a legislature that's picking up on that very same issue and realizing that this is not something that needs to be criminalized in the way that it has been, and that it's extremely problematic, especially for Black communities. And so I'm very glad to see that the legislature has taken this issue up, has given it thought, and has decided to move forward with what looks like decriminalization.
But when you talk about decriminalization, can you explain the difference of decriminalization versus legalization?
Right. So we have seen in some other states like Washington State, you know, in Colorado, where the legislatures in those states have legalized marijuana use, and then it becomes a regulated industry. It seems like in Virginia we're not there yet. I believe there is some legislation that, if you guys are interested in seeing about the legalization component, that does appear to be some legislation around medical marijuana legalization in the state. But for recreational use, it is not legal for people to buy marijuana for recreational use at this point in Virginia, and it doesn't appear that that's going to be the case coming out of this legislative session, which just means that measures have been put into place to keep people from being arrested and sent to potentially incarcerated behind marijuana possession, simple marijuana possession. And, you know, that is something that, you know, the legislature, I believe, will be looking to take up during the next legislative session. But just to be clear now, that's not where we are. So it's very simple. It is not recreational use for legalization, but it's decriminalization to ensure that people are not arrested, incarcerated, and criminally penalized. And then another important thing to realize is that in Virginia, a lot of young folks don't realize that we don't have true expungements as of yet. And I don't know what has come out of legislative session specifically for that issue. But that's something I think that in conjunction with talking about legalization and decriminalization of marijuana, we need to be thinking through true expungements. Because right now, as it stands, if you look at the law, the expungements come into play for people who either have a not guilty, a dismissal, or a non prosequi, which means that you are basically found to be innocent in some way, or you were not convicted. But if you were convicted, let's say you had again, let's use the baby formula scenario. You were 18 years old, you stole baby formula because you didn't have anything to feed your child, and you were convicted of petty larceny when you were 18, and now you're 45 years old. And in some states, you know, there may be an expungement mechanism for somebody who was convicted, but in Virginia, we don't have that. And as we begin to look forward and think about how we need to right the wrongs of the past, I think taking up true expungements in Virginia is something that we really need to wrap our brains around and accomplish.
Yes. And that's something you've been talking about for a while. And while I'm thinking about it, because I always do this, because I'm a fan of the Divine Nine, you are a member of Delta Sigma Theta.
Yes.
And another national organization, the Links Incorporated.
Correct.
So, and they do great work in communities throughout the country. So,
yes.
I always wanted to acknowledge that. I want those guys out there to take note that if you out there with several pounds of it with the intent to distribute, this does not get you off the hook.
Correct.
Okay, because you're going to pay for that. But this is for those people that are there incarcerated or may be incarcerated in the future or convicted or in the future for small amounts of recreational use and decriminalize it. So just want to make that distinction. So
that's
those guys
good.
out there on the corner
that's a good point. And I
easy.
think another point to make is that I don't know that people have, and I think that's why I brought up expungements. I don't know that the legislature has taken up what happens for people who have been convicted.
Right.
And so that's another thing that we need to think through is how do we want to reach back, and do we want to open up a mechanism in the law for prosecutors or whomever is reviewing these matters to try to get some restorative justice, to think about what we have done and how we right the wrongs of the past as we try to move forward in the right way.
So when you're talking about restoring, can restore voting rights, and also if you're in the system and you've got these old charges and they've been exposed, but you're still expunged, but you're still, your economic record is still going to be tainted in the future by you being in the court system, even though we haven't wiped them clean. Because one, say if you get caught with small bites of marijuana and I can't apply for a state job because it's on my record. Federal government's out, military's out. What can I do?
Well, that's why I spoke about the importance of having the true expungement.
Yes, true expungement.
I do know that now, I believe for the federal government, there is ban the box. So I don't know how effective that is. You know, to be quite honest with you, I don't know whether that's an initial checkpoint where, you know, people who have been formally convicted of crimes, they don't have to check the box, but then later on down the line, there's a background check.
Yes.
And so I have learned with some people who I work with who were formerly incarcerated that it does appear that initially you don't have to check the box, but then sometimes they want to be forthcoming and they want to share the information. And even if they aren't sharing that information, there are still things that have to be checked because, as you know, we live in a military area, the shipyard town, and there are clearances that are required. And so even if you don't initially have to check that box, when you go through the process of trying to obtain that clearance, you run into snags. And so, you know, my voice is one thing, but when we hear the voices of those who are impacted, that's another. And so a lot of times what I like to do is give my platform where, you know, I have a seat at the table to somebody who's actually experiencing these issues, to let those in positions of power understand how important it is to them to be able to have opportunities, whether or not they have a marijuana conviction or not. Because ultimately we want everyone to be able to contribute in society and in their communities. That's what keeps people from, you know, committing crime. That is what keeps people from, you know, making the decisions that a lot of times people who sit in my position, they think it's an easy choice for somebody to make. But I guarantee you most people that commit what are defined as crimes, they don't do it, you know, without thinking about the consequences. But sometimes they actually have to feed themselves and their families, and they will make poor choices as a result. The difference for me is, again, finding out where we have a poor decision versus someone who is a danger and a threat to the community. And I'm not saying that there shouldn't be accountability. Everyone has to be accountable, including me. But we have to make sure that we're doing right by people as we pursue accountability.
You know, from where I sit, it's important for you to be sitting in that chair.
Thank you.
In the city of Portsmouth, because so long we haven't had anybody that spoke up for us, especially in the state of Virginia and across this nation. And I look, you know, further back. You know, I'm looking at the at our federal government. I look at Attorney General Barr, who is espousing that there are basically two Americas, two justice systems, one for one side and one for us. Even though we talk about criminal justice reform, which is only for those if you have a representation of, say, Kardashians. People need to wake up.
Yeah.
That was the mouthful, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
But let me say, you do a lot of traveling around and had the opportunity to run into other African American prosecutors.
Yes.
And do a lot of speaking and things, and that has to be sort of a gift to you, being able to talk to these people in other areas in New York and the West Coast, and bring that information back and apply it to what's going on in the city of Portsmouth. It's probably also a proud moment too to be among all these. I saw a picture one time. It must have been at least 10 or more of African American prosecutors, all together,
Yes.
sharing information.
Yeah, and so you know what? It's not just prosecutors, and so that's the really beautiful thing. It's, you know, I've had the opportunity to work with elected officials from all around the country in all different capacities. Young elected officials, progressive elected officials, other prosecutors, and what's really special is a lot of times those people who I've had an opportunity to interact with have looked at what we've gotten right here in Portsmouth, Virginia. And so I think in Portsmouth, a lot of people are like, oh, you're getting to travel, you're getting to do these things. But one thing that I don't know if Portsmouth realizes is how proud I am of the city of Portsmouth and how I carry Portsmouth in my heart. And I share all the beautiful things that we have gotten right here. Of course, we have a lot of work to do. You know, everywhere does, and our nation is going to really require so many people to try to get where we need to go. But I get to share about what we do here in Portsmouth well, and how amazing our people are and how resilient and what a force we are. And people are impressed with our city, and I don't even know if the people of Portsmouth even realize that. But yes, I have had, you know, another organization that I serve with is this organization called Local Progress, where I'm a national board member for that organization of over 1,000 progressive elected officials who serve locally all around the country. And so I absolutely have learned so much from these organizations. I work quite often with the Vera Institute for Justice, the Institute for Innovation and Prosecution, a lot of organizations that don't just, you know, we don't get around and just talk. We also talk about resources and what resources we can bring to the city and what innovations we can bring. And really, like, I just constantly have had the ability to expand my thinking and to just realize, you know, what's happening in other states and what we don't have. So one of the things that other states have is something that's referred to as prosecutor-led diversion, where prosecutors have units in their office who actually make determinations about what cases will go forward. And other states are very unfamiliar with the magistrate system that we have. So it's very interesting to think about how differently other states operate, what the opportunities are, and really how we can look to the future and how we can look at some of the innovations other states have to bring us full circle. Yeah, absolutely.
And they probably benefit from what they get from you as well.
Yes. They, you know, are quite proud when I go to other areas, and we spend a lot of time talking about the programs that we've been dedicated to in the office, such as the Future Leaders Initiative, and we've seen other offices pick up on that. Our Control Alt Delete program, where we go into prison, is hugely popular. And you may have seen an article that came out of the Washington Post where I had an opportunity to be featured with the work that we've done in prisons, that now prosecutors' offices, I think it was close to 40 offices around the country, have pledged to take their prosecutors into prisons, and not just to visit and watch, but to engage with the people who are incarcerated, so that the people who are making decisions about where people will go will actually understand what they're subjecting somebody to when they recommend a sentence for a period of incarceration. And of course, you know, accountability for law enforcement, and also prosecutor accountability, because really law enforcement accountability is not just about, you know, saying to law enforcement you have to be accountable, but it's about self-accountability, because as prosecutors we traditionally have held everybody else in the community accountable but ourselves and but law enforcement. And so around the country people are hugely proud of that level of accountability, of the effort to really try to be a system of justice for everyone, and not just for the normal people or the everyday people in our community, but really to truly look at accountability and what that looks like for everybody and how to get it right for everybody.
And you sort of stepped into my next question, because next week we're having the Portsmouth Police Chief, Angela Green, in here. And I know the accountability part goes both ways. How important it is for the Commonwealth Attorney's Office and the Police Department to have a good relationship.
Well, what's important is a relationship of respect. You know,
It starts with respect.
it has to be a relationship of respect. You know, and I know that as adults we go to work and everybody is not going to be best friends. And so whether we are the best of friends or not doesn't matter.
In any environment.
In any environment, what matters is the type of service that we all provide, and that we do it from a place of respect. And so what I have experienced with Chief Green is an amazing relationship of respect. And, you know, I haven't seen anything other than a person who is interested in trying to get it right. And that's what our relationship has been founded on. Is trying to make sure that we provide the best service that we possibly can, and that is a beautiful thing to me. You know, just having that relationship of respect. We have open lines of communication, and I think that from the top, leading with us, coming from that place of respect and having those open lines of communication and really being able to talk to each other about whatever we need to do to try to get it right for the members of our community is the place where you want to start.
And I'm glad you said that. I'm glad the respect is there. And then the next level of respect has to be the you know, transparency between those two bodies and the public.
Yes.
You know,
Absolutely.
and you're very good in coming out and talking to the public and letting the public know what's going on. And we have to get to that next level, especially in a climate that we have now where the crime rate is kind of up. And not kind of up, is up, and we see a lot of things going on. And
well, I'll let her speak to the statistics on the crime rate.
Yeah, I mean, it gets to you after.
Absolutely.
You know, after they do what they can do.
Yes.
So you know, having that respect there, you know, it gives me comfort. But my point in saying that was we have to make sure we transparent to the public and let them know what's going on.
Absolutely.
My pet peeve has been leading up to this point is that the public doesn't know. It hasn't been any response from our elected officials. You know, I mean, I know they can't go out there and say, hey, don't shoot that person, but, you know, sometimes you have to, some of those people ran on a platform of being more transparent.
Absolutely.
And just letting the public know that you are aware that the crime is up and that you feel them, and, you know, we're trying to do, because when one person gets shot or killed, it affects a whole family,
Whole
you know,
community.
a whole community.
Exactly.
And for us to sit silently, or for them to sit silently and not say anything, that's just my personal opinion. I think it should be something coming forth.
So how are you getting all the information in about the programs to the community? How are you getting that across?
So a variety of different ways. So, you know, from the beginning, I've tried my best to work with any and everybody. So we will do sometimes media releases depending on what we have coming up. So like when we in the past have had programs coming up for young people, we've done media releases. We've sent letters to civic leagues and churches. We've sent information to the schools. I go and visit the schools all the time. And really we just share by every platform that we possibly can, word of mouth, everything. When it comes to the programs in the prison, that's a little bit different. That Control Alt Delete program started off in the community. In 2015, we held our first seminar at St. Mark Missionary Baptist Church. And then it grew and developed into going into the prison to try to directly reach people who were incarcerated and hear directly from them about what they were facing and what assistance they needed. And so that is now a little bit different because it's in the prison. We normally communicate directly with the prison, but are talking about now doing another seminar in the community again to ensure that we're trying to serve everyone. And so again, you know, we will do a media release, and we have done media releases for those. We will continue to communicate with civic leagues, with schools, with churches, really any and every, and of course we will communicate with you all as well, so that you can share that message. But we want to be able to serve everyone that we possibly can. And we've even had young people and people in our programs who don't live in Portsmouth. But as you know, the entire 757 is interconnected.
Yes.
And really, one person's success is everybody's success.
Yes.
And when you said that, you know, when somebody when we have a homicide and somebody passes away, that affects the family, but it really does impact the entire community, and it should, and we should all care very deeply. And really, that's a life that was taken. That was somebody that could contribute to our community that's taken away. For me, it's very, very difficult when we have homicides. I find out about every single one of them, probably, you know, very close in time to when they happen. And I have to be very careful about what I say, because there are, you know, rules in place, ethical rules that prevent me from being able to say certain things that would be considered extrajudicial statements.
I understand that part about
yeah,
your
so
position.
for me,
I was talking about.
No, and I get you, but you know, it's difficult because you know, I do get to see, as somebody who's very in touch with the community, people hurting, and you know, want to do my best. And so sometimes I'll say something like, you know, I'm praying for peace and I'm praying for our city, and you all probably are picking up on what I'm talking about or speaking to. But you know, as a people, I think it's just time for us to return to the traditional values that we used to have around community, and ensuring that as our young people are growing up, that they value human life.
Yeah, and you talked about unity. We have to be more unified in our efforts in all the areas. School, you're very active in going into the schools, and I think it's so important for the young kids to see people that they can feel in touch.
Yes.
That are making history right in their own city. You know, so you're good about, and other elected officials are good about that too. So
yes.
It starts. You have to start there.
Absolutely.
Plant that seed there.
Very young.
Yeah, I can be her.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
That's the key.
Because you were impressed by.
It was Judge Elliott,
okay.
I believe.
Yeah.
I was 6 years
I remember
old.
you said
Yeah,
that
I
before.
always tell that story that, you know, at 6 years old, that's when my mom took me to visit court. And I believe it was Judge Elliott, and you know, I never looked back. That was what I wanted to be since 6 years old, and because I saw somebody that I could see myself in, I knew that it was a possibility. I never doubted it for 1 second. And that's what I need our young people to understand, is that anything that they want to accomplish, they can do it, but sometimes they need to see it in action, or sometimes they need to see somebody that they can relate to, so that light bulb will turn on.
Have to have that exposure. That's
Absolutely.
The key. If you're exposed to it, then I can dream it.
Yes.
And if I can dream it, I can work hard, and I can what?
Achieve it.
Achieve
Yes.
And we're getting, unfortunately, we're getting close to the end of the half hour. And just wanted to wrap up here, and thank you again for coming here and sharing the information. Of course, we have to have you back, and I'm sure other people are going to be wanting to get you on their program, and that's fine.
Absolutely.
Whatever way we can get the information out, and you can share the information and share what you're doing. But we appreciate it and keep doing. And let's remind everybody that you're up for re-election.
Yes,
this year.
2021.
2021.
Yeah,
Okay, well, it's good to know that now. To be here before you know it. So
yes.
Godspeed to you.
Thank
and
you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you, everyone, for listening to our program today, and along with our Commonwealth Attorney. And join us next month as we have the Portsmouth Police Chief, Miss Angela Green, as our guest, as we continue to honor our women during this Women's History Month. Thank you, and as always, be aware, be informed, and most of all, be involved. Thank you. God bless you. And stay tuned to the Bishop Edward Johnson as he continues his morning drive glory train. Thank you so much. Have a great day. God bless you.
Oh, thank you. Yes, leaving all my stuff.
Yeah, we'll get a picture.
Let's get it in here with the radio in the background.
Get one on. Thanks everybody for watching.